Hello friends, I'm the Dyslexic Cosplayer and it's time we take a look at Blake 7. So for my own sake having to edit this, and for your enjoyment, I have taken the A-plot and B-plot and streamlined them into two separate stories until they inadvertently overlap. Otherwise, it's a lot of cutting back and forth and it would probably be way too confusing. That being said, let's get into episode 19, Trial. In plotline A, we see Blake scouting out an uninhabited planet before preparing to go down. And his response to Avon's inquiry is, probably about right. I'm going down on my own, Avon. It has nothing to do with you. Nothing at all, but it occurs to me if you run into trouble, one of your 3 remaining followers, might have to risk his neck to rescue you. You must advise them against that, Avon. Oh, I will. They might even listen to you this time. Why not? After all, I don't get them killed. Damn, dude! Avon just delivered 2d6 emotional damage to the face! As Blake leaves to go lick his wound, Jenna and Avon discuss what it is he's planning on doing here. Jenna assuming that he's planning on running out on them, something that probably makes sense given her background of having been betrayed at least once before. Something that seems even more likely as Blake takes an opportune distraction to slip away unnoticed and teleport down to the planet. Ah, the teleporter effect. It turns out that's diegetic in this episode. We see him messing around with some gizmos before disappearing off into the brush, while one of the BBC interns uses a stick to mess with the electrical device Blake left behind. Back up on the Liberator, the suspicious, confused, and angry crew members try and figure out what's going on. It doesn't help that Blake isn't wearing his teleport bracelet and zeroed the controls, so they don't even know where he teleported down to. It gets even more confusing when Zen proceeds to take them out of orbit and further away, making it even harder for them to try and locate him. So now, distinctly minus Blake, they try and take stock of what they're supposed to do next. Of course, Avon's initial plan is for them to abandon Blake and go off and become stinking rich with the Liberator. Naturally, Callie and Jenna are resistant to this plan. Callie because she's devoted to the cause, and Jenna because she's devoted to Blake. They keep trying to figure out what it is he's doing, thinking that if only Gan was there. Oh yes, of course, he would know exactly what's going on. Maybe he would.
Why do you say that, Villa?
He was straightforward. Never expected to be double-crossed and overturned, not like us. He trusted people. He trusted Blake completely.
Much good it did him.
Welcome back to reality, Jenna.
Villa, if Gan was here, what would he have asked Aurak?
Something obvious. Did Blake leave any messages? Fortunately, that was the trick. They're able to get a message left by Blake telling them that he's essentially gone on walkabout on the planet below. It's completely uninhabited and in theory is devoid of any hostile life, but obviously he doesn't care much. He's trying to decide whether or not to give up this whole resistance thing since he got Gan killed by believing in his own legend too much, and if he's going to return to the ship at all. Turns out that radio is a locator, so he's able to find his teleport bracelet again. He'll be back in 3 hours. If they want to take him back, they can try and beam him up, and if they don't beam him up, he'll have an answer as to what they're going to do next. Yeah, I gotta say, there's probably an easier way to think and sort this all out, just saying. Especially when it becomes apparent that the planet's not as uninhabited as they thought. Wow, somebody clearly was not paying the interns enough. And they steal his bag, so he's now completely lost and helpless. As he's trying to track down the individual who stole his bag, he fell down and then gets doused in a whole bunch of smoke. Remember this will be important for a little theory I have later. But then he ends up finding out who stole his bag, and it's our first depiction of an alien in Blake 7. What are you?
You know I'm totally off script right now. The Green New Deal, right? Darling, is the wind blowing today? I'd like to watch television, darling.
Well, if that's your only means of communication, I can't see us having much of a conversation.
Russia to go get the email.
Why did you stop?
So yeah, this is Zill. She's an alien that inhabits the planet along with several others, and I give them credit for the alien form of speech that she uses, mostly insofar as it just lacks context clues, so it's a little hard to understand from that. Mostly talking about nothing, stuff like Blake having come to oneness, how he must stay moving or else risk being absorbed, and something about the host stirring as the ground begins to shake and she takes off running. Blake following her, because what else is he going to do, really? Back up on Liberator as Avon's waiting, he's working on a pet project that Villa inquires about. Something Avon calls a detector shield. You mean their long-range detectors won't detect us at all? That's brilliant, Avon. Absolutely brilliant. It'll never work. There's only one way to find out. I'm sure Blake will find us something appropriate to attack. Whoa, Avon. I think you're giving Blake way too much credit. He's barely been able to find the offspring of a chicken and a condom at the moment. Blake eventually is able to find Zill, and in an attempt to understand her, she ends up dropping some pretty intense truth bombs. To live is not enough.
To be alone is not to be feared. The host is slow to recognize one who is alone. Though there are many, we must stay alone.
Taking a break from ethical discussions, she ends up showing Blake how to eat by tearing a hole in the ground and eating some sort of warm liquid that comes from the ground. Sure, Blake, just try eating the same thing an alien eats. Who knows? It's probably fine. Back up on the Liberator, it becomes clear that something seems off. Apparently, several major continents are going to be sinking into the ocean over the next 5 hours, even though there's no sign of major tectonic instability that should be causing that. And of course, the obvious problem that if Blake is on one of those continents, he may be swimming for quite some time, like the rest of his life. Back down on the planet, Blake is reunited with his equipment, but unfortunately not knowing where he is, he can't give Liberator coordinates to be teleported back up to the ship. And that's also when Zill apparently decides to start dying. Great! Our spirit guide is gone and we have no way home. This is going to end so well. And the good news just keeps on coming. Up on the Liberator, it turns out that the planet is an organism in of itself. A bit like Ego the Living Planet. It seems that Zill and her species are a parasite that leeches off of the life of the planet. So it's engaging the pest control program by burying all of the continents in essentially oceans of saliva to dissolve them and reabsorb the biomass that they've been feeding off of it. So yeah, Blake just made friends with the biggest lice in the universe. So Avon's new plan is to essentially roam around the planet, pulsing it randomly with a teleporter signal in hopes that they can catch Blake, figure out where he is, and teleport him back up to the ship. It is possibly 1 in a million, and if they're unsuccessful, Blake is almost certainly dead. Back down on the planet, Blake finally finds out part of why Zill has been trying to help him so much. It seems her species emerged from white eggs, and she thought she saw him being born when he first touched down. The white outline from the teleporter, she thought that was his egg cracking and letting him out. I mean, I like the fact that we did something with the teleporter effect, but it's still just a little contrived and silly. But then Zill gets eaten by the planet. Bye, Zill! That was a thing that just happened, yes. Fortunately for Blake, Avon's little plan managed to pay off and they're able to teleport him back up to the ship. Thank you. Next time I want to do some thinking, I'll do it in my cabin. But fortunately, this trial has forced Blake to realize that he was getting too big and believing in his legend too much, and that their only hope is to keep pressing on and to destroy the Federation utterly. And he decides that their best effort to help restore their legend is a quick attack at Servalon's headquarters using Avon's detector shield, which gets put to the test shortly before they arrive. They missed us! Avon's gadget works! Is something wrong? It just occurred to me, as a description for a highly organized technological advance, Avon's gadget works seems to lack a certain amount of style. Well, that's where we're gonna put the A-plot on pause and switch over to the B-plot. That mainly being the trial of Travis, being attended by the head of the Information Bureau, as well as President of the Federation's personal representative. And the trial to be overseen by a big-shot general with the nickname of Star Killer. No, not John Sheridan from Babylon 5, but that would be quite the crossover. But yeah, this is Servalon's retribution for Travis's failure in Pressure Point, intent on making sure that he goes down before he has a chance to testify about her failures in that operation. Also making sure that his lawyer is one of her little flunkies. And it's not looking great as Travis is put on trial for the murder of all those civilians that caused Blake to damage his eye and face. Even worse when his lawyer not only forgoes their opening statement, but also decides to have each individual name and cause of death for those civilians read aloud. Presumably in case she wants to dispute it, but actually just to make Travis look even worse. Sometime later, after all the names have been read aloud, they decide to put the trial on hold until tomorrow. After the trial recesses, I love the dialogue exchange between these two characters. We know she's sending Travis to his death to keep his mouth shut, but she's doing it with such an honest and painstaking tribunal that her real motives can't even be hinted at.
Has a date been set for the Blake inquiry?
Does it matter? Without Travis's evidence, the failure of the Blake affair becomes a matter of conjecture.
It could still damage Servalan. Slime sticks, as the old saying has it.
Yes, but the president can't be seen to throw it.
Servalan picked Travis.
President picked Servalan. Probably not a good idea to discuss treason when you're being viewed on a secret spy camera that Servalan's hidden in the trial so she can observe the proceedings. Just saying. Servalan is surprised that Travis hasn't been reacting very much, mostly just sort of sitting there. So Servalan tells her to find out what it is he's planning next, since Travis has always got a plan. Later that evening, Travis is joined by one of the two guards guarding the trial, who used to be a soldier serving under him back when Travis was a field commander. He gives him a bottle of wine as thanks for all of his years of dutiful service, and not getting his men killed unnecessarily. Though it's actually a ploy by the lawyer to try and loosen up Travis. I also love just how blunt this career soldier is.
Do you think he's guilty?
No doubt about it, Major. He gave the order. We just did the shooting. And despite having drunk all the alcohol, Travis is still no idiot, refusing to tell his lawyer anything, and finding her utterly contemptuous, realizing that she's mostly working against him at this point. The next day at the trial, bring in the witness.
Thank you, Your Honor, for allowing me to testify against this monster of the Federation. Exterminate!
Yes, you said you were a victim of his crimes. Please tell us about those.
Well, he would push me down flights of stairs and dunk my head in the toilet. It was not pleasant. I'm sorry, Your Honor. He's just so evil. And that's saying something coming from me.
Yeah, when you're called evil by a Dalek, that's pretty bad for your case. Not helped by the fact the next day, before delivering sentence, she decides to use their opening statement to make Travis sound as guilty as possible, which leads to a full-on argument between him and his lawyer in the courtroom, before the judges decide that maybe, yeah, his lawyer hasn't been as helpful as they could be. So Travis decides to make his opening statement himself. And it is a doozy. This is one of those times I really wish we could have had the original actor playing Travis delivering these lines. Just listen to this.
A field officer such as myself is frequently required to make fast, unconsidered decisions. You are all field officers, you know that's true. Time to think is a luxury that Batum seldom affords you. You react instinctively. Your actions, your decisions, instinct, nothing more. But an officer's instincts are a product of his training. The more thorough the training, the better the instinct, the more predictable the officer. And I am a good officer. I am totally dedicated to my duty and how to perform it. On Sir Castan I acted how I was trained to act. I was an instrument of the service. So if I am guilty of murder, of mass murder, then so are all of you.
And you can see, in spite of themselves, this affects even the career military there. It's a well-done speech. Unfortunately, not well enough done to find him innocent. However, right as they are sentencing him to death, you can just see the Liberator coming into the background shot there. A little detail I've always appreciated about this scene. And that's where the A and B plots collide, as Blake fires upon Space Command. Probably the only time that anyone from the Rebellion has so directly attacked the Federation in that manner, threatening Servalan, allowing Travis to escape. Having made their point, Blake and his crew decide to get out of there before the pursuit ships return to Space Command, their point having been made. So Travis finds Servalan and is not particularly pleased she tried to execute him, but tries for one last gamble. at gunpoint telling her that she's going to give him a ship and a bunch of mutoids that will obey his commands unquestioningly. He'll hunt Blake and she can hunt both of them together. And if successful, he'll get his command back, and if not, well, she's got just as good a reason to kill him as she did before. But it's also pretty clear that Travis is gone unhinged, no longer wishing to be used by Servalon, even if he is still playing into her hands. Having successfully made their getaway, Blake has a little bit of a philosophical moment with Avon before the end of the episode. Resist the host, or your oneness will be absorbed. I would have quite liked to have met this Zill of yours. It's not often one comes across a philosophical flea. That's the stuff that legends are made of? Then again, perhaps they're not that uncommon. And with that, we end the episode. Okay, cards on the table. The Zill plot is good character development at its finest, while making no sense whatsoever. Up until this point in Blake 7, it's been very clear that humanity has not encountered any sentient aliens out there. True, Liberator is considered alien technology by the literal definition, but it was still built by humans, just humans with an understanding of science highly advanced compared to the Federation. But no aliens by the technical definition. Certainly not ones that are basically little more than fleas. My best guess is that when Blake fell down in that smoke, it somehow caused him to essentially be tripping on peyote or something, so everything down there was a hallucination. That doesn't explain any of the stuff about Zen figuring out the planet was alive, or any of that, but maybe that was part of the hallucination on Blake's part, so it's an unreliable narrator situation. But yeah, that's the best I can come up with. Otherwise, the crew really should be freaking out about the fact they found an alien planet that's truly alive, rather than the best they can manage seemingly being dull surprise. But I do appreciate giving Blake a hero's journey moment, sending him off into the wilderness to try and learn from his failures and grow as a person so that he can return as the master of two worlds. It's just kind of nice to see him actually getting some character development, since most of the time he is kind of flat and one-dimensional as a character. Yeah. So all in all, I do like it, even if it's a little silly. The trial of Trav-ish is really good in some ways. While the subplot with his lawyer is kind of pointless, it still does a pretty good job of showing Travis's disillusionment with the service and just how fucked up the system really is. The fact that Servalon isn't putting on a show trial and going about it as honestly as possible, being something worth commenting on by two government officials, is kind of hilarious. The fact that it's just so unusual is perfect, and a true statement of just how corrupt the Federation has become. And some of the political machinations between Servalon and the President are pretty good. I really like the setup that Servalon is more powerful than the President in all intents and purposes. Even if it doesn't come into play too much, it's still kind of nice to see and helps expand her character. The last-ditch attempt by Travish to make a claim for Blake is, unexpected, but also totally in keeping with his character. I would have liked to have seen more of a sign that Servalon had manipulated him to this point with the trial, rather than it being his own decision, just to help maintain that level of power she has over him. But it's still well done for the most part, and sets up for a pretty decent episode coming up soon. So yeah, friends, for a change, I am pleasantly surprised to say I have quite a lot to say about a really good episode. It's well written, the characterization's good, besides some slight stumbling blocks, it's all in all probably one of my favorite episodes. I didn't appreciate it much as a kid, because it was a lot more intellectual than my brain was willing to handle at that point, but as an adult, I love the storyline and the elements that they managed to sleep in here. Good job on the writers. So friends, I've been doing this series to bring a little bit of joy to everyone's lives and to help educate people. And while, because of educating people, I wouldn't normally want to skip our next episode, episode 20, Killer, I think we're going to put that episode on the back burner for a bit, just given the fact that the subject matter is a little too close to home right now. I mean, a disease ravaging a planet and ultimately killing everyone, probably not a great time to do an episode on that. But I hope you'll join me for episode 21. What can you expect from that episode? Well, we We find out Blake happens to have extra family, Travis actually manages to get the drop on Blake, and I get the distinct impression that Blake is from West Virginia. I hope you all will join me for episode 21, Hostage. Until next time, sign-offs are hard.
Hello, friends. I hope you're all enjoying Blake 7 as much as I am making the reviews of it. If you want to show your support for the series, check out their YouTube page, link in the description. And if you want to show support for this series, feel free to like, share, and subscribe. I'm also doing other reviews all the time, and new series are always coming. And if you enjoy those, I have some original content that I'm creating, as well as a bunch of stuff over on my Patreon. Links for that and my Facebook page can be found in the description below. And now some special thanks for my patrons on Patreon. Drawn by Kenna, Jen Goodnight, Lucy Westera, Norm DePlume. Thank you all so much for your contributions and for making all of this possible.